Hello and welcome to the Data Engineering Podcast, the show about modern data management. When you're ready to build your next pipeline, you'll need somewhere to deploy it, so you should check out Linode. With private networking, shared block storage, node balancers, and a 40 gigabit network, all controlled by a brand new API, you've got everything you need to run a bulletproof data platform. Go to dataengineeringpodcast.com/Linode to get a $20 credit and launch a new server in under a minute. And for complete visibility into the health of your pipeline, including deployment tracking and powerful alerting driven by machine learning, Datadog has got you covered. With their monitoring, metrics, and log collection agent, including extensive integrations and distributed tracing, you'll have everything you need to find and fix performance bottlenecks in no time. Go to dataengineeringpodcast.com/Datadog today to start your free 14-day trial and get a sweet new t-shirt. And go to dataengineeringpodcast.com to subscribe to the show, sign up for the newsletter, read the show notes, and get in touch. Your host is Tobias Macey, and today I'm interviewing Amnon Drori about Octopai and the benefits of metadata management. So, Amnon, could you start by introducing yourself?
Hi, Tobias. My name is Amnon. I'm from Octopai. And as you said, one of the things that we do is to help companies manage their data in a more automated manner.
And how did you first get involved in the area of data management?
So we have to go a couple of years back. One of the things that I remember myself as an executive in my previous company is that we went to this very important board meeting, and I was showing some numbers about our sales numbers. And for some reason, when I showed those numbers, the CFO, which was sitting next to me, was saying that my numbers are higher than his numbers. So during that meeting, we were asked about why there's a difference between my sales numbers and the CFO's sales numbers, because he was pulling out from the financial system and I was pulling this out from the CRM system. And the difference between the numbers was a couple millions of dollars of revenue.
Yeah, that's a pretty substantial difference.
Right. And one of the things that we were asked is, where is this differentiation coming from? So we were asking each other, what is the name of the report that you're looking at? And surprisingly, we're looking at the same report. So the other question that came up is, how come the two executives are looking at the same report, but they get different numbers? Now, from that point on, and 7 days later, we had to invest 3 people's time to track the data movement process that landed the data on these reports. And what eventually we found out is that one of the processes that was responsible for streaming the data to that report was modified. And it indeed updated the data only on one of the reports. And this is why the discrepancy came to that meeting. And when we looked around, we saw that there are so many reports that we're using, and we look at the data in order to take major decisions, and the discrepancy of data which led to data integrity was all over the place. Actually, we found out that it's not only our challenge, it seems to be that when I talk to my peers in other companies, it seems to be that this was also their challenge. And at some point of time, we said, well, these things happen. Maybe you cannot change it, but definitely you can change how fast, how accurate can you be when you manage your data in order to hand it over in a trusted manner to the business users for them to take decisions. And at that point of time, I remember that when I was looking at how the business intelligence team was manually trying to track the data movement process that landed on that report, this is where I was asking myself, there must be a better way to do that and not spend weeks of many people on the team to try to track the data movement process on a single report. And we were using thousands of reports. That was kind of the moment.
And as you mentioned, Octopai is intended to help solve some of the issues associated with being able to collect and track and maintain and gain inference from this metadata. So I'm wondering if you can discuss a bit more about what it is that the business does, and you've already spoken a bit to your motivation for founding it, but any other background that you want to provide about creating the business and getting it up off the ground?
Yes, absolutely. One of the things that you can see in any organization, they're using a lot of business applications: CRM, ERP, PLM, HR, finance, marketing, HR, and there's tons of different applications that serves the company's purpose. If you think about insurance companies, the banking, the retail, the telecom, government, any large company has tens of business applications. The problem is that a lot of business consumers, the business users, and their affiliates want to get a grip on that data in order to understand what's going on in the business so they can take further decisions. The team that is responsible for lending the data to those business users is the business intelligence team. They are doing a very, very critical and important job in transforming the data from those business applications until they land on that report. And that involves a lot of business intelligence systems that do that. One of the things that we found out is that data travel or the data movement process is very, very complicated to track. In a typical enterprise, you can find hundreds of millions, if not billions, of ways how the data moves. And almost every day, you need to try and find different routes of the data journey because of different use cases. And that takes time. What we wanted to do is to create a product that what it does, it automatically extracts, centralize, analyze, and visualize every data journey possible within those infrastructure. And in that way, you can understand how to get from point A to point B, or what it seems to be like from source to target, in 5 seconds. Not 5 hours, not 5 days, not 5 weeks. 5 seconds.
And I'm wondering if you can enumerate some of the types of information that you classify and collect as metadata, and a bit of the mechanism that you use to be able to collect that information.
Right. So metadata is not a new term. Metadata is the description, is the context, is the labeling of the data. Without metadata, the data doesn't have any meaning. If I'm going to ask you, could you give me 20? You're going to think about my question for a second, and then you're going to ask me 20 what? That what is the description about the data, as you know, as data about the data. It's actually, in the market, people use the word data and information. Information is the context of the data in which then we understand what is the meaning of the data. The challenge is that the metadata that describes the data lands on a lot of business, I would say business intelligence systems. And sometimes they are even coming from different vendors. So one of the challenges that we had to face with how can you extract the metadata from each system that uses metadata for its own purpose. So ETL systems are using that to create business processes. Database or data warehouse store that metadata on tables and views, and reports are using the metadata to project them on a table or a dashboard. So the structure of the data, the synonyms, the expressions, the SQL statement, the tables, anything that has to do with the descriptive of that data, if this is physical metadata, business metadata, and operational metadata, collecting all of these pieces of metadata in order to understand the data journey between all of those systems until it finally lands on a single report was very, very challenging. So what we do is we collect all that type of metadata and then centralize them into one place.
And what does the technical architecture of your platform look like for being able to collect and aggregate all of this information?
So one of the things that, as you've heard, is that it's not a one-thing event. Our product combines different technologies that together can provide the output that we provide our customers. I think that the first layer or the first challenge that we had to face with is to extract the metadata from those systems. Because, as I said, metadata is distributed among so many different BI systems. Some are from Oracle or Informatica or Microsoft or SAP or HP or even other systems. It's very challenging to extract the metadata from their metadata repository. So that was one of the challenges that we had to face with. In order to cope with that, we've created a layer of extractors that what they do, they are capable of extracting granular metadata from each one of these systems, even though they might be from different vendors. So that was the first challenge. The second challenge was in the architecture that once you've extracted the metadata, where are you going to put all those metadata files? And then we created a product that runs on the cloud, either on the customer's private cloud or on Microsoft Azure and AWS. Once those metadata files have been extracted, they are being encrypted by running this through a vault and then upload to a dedicated server of that specific customer. Now we have all the metadata centralized. The third thing that we do once all the metadata is centralized is the analysis of that metadata by running a lot of modeling, very smart, or I would say deep algorithmics and principles of machine learning. That what they do two major things. They index each and every metadata element or data element. And the second thing, which is really cool, is to understand the relationship of each and every metadata item in order to create the dependencies and the connections between them in order to draw a full exact map of that data journey. The fourth layer is a very, very, very robust search engine, because when you want to see data journey that needs to run on more than a billion type of ways of how the data journey can flow, and you want to get that in 5 seconds, we are firing tens of thousands of search requests in order to build that map that you can see in 5 seconds. And the last layer is the visualization, the ability to see what you were looking for in a nice graphical, easy, intuitive way, that the entire stack beneath that, as I described, the extraction, the centralization, the analysis, the searchability, and then the visualization, all of this magic happens in one click and generates that in 5 seconds.
Once the metadata has been collected from the customer system and uploaded to your platform, is there a way for the customers to go in and annotate or create any modifications to the metadata to manually create some linkings that might not be able to be easily inferred for adding that additional relationship information?
So the answer is yes. What we've learned is that our product can be a viewer and also an editor. And that is one of the things that our technology is very, very strong of. But we also learned that metadata is very much managed in the source systems, in what we call the BI, the business applications. And in some cases, you don't want to use Octopai to edit that metadata and then inject it back to the business application. Rather, you want this to be a viewer for the business intelligence team to understand what the hell is going on there. So as much as we would allow editing the metadata, typically Octopai is being used as a viewer of the metadata, and through that to understand where the metadata is and understand the data journey. One of the things that people use Octopai also to add description and understand the metadata within and write that and add that within Octopai. So they use it as the main platform for metadata management. But I think that the thing that we introduced to the market is that you can still do metadata management, but in an automated manner, and you leverage automation to do that rather than the manual way that you've used to work so far.
And in terms of the volume and searchability of the data that you're using, are you primarily leveraging existing data storage technologies such as Elasticsearch or PostgreSQL, or have you found the need to create your own custom data stores for being able to index and analyze all that information?
So that's a great question. It's actually a combination. There are some techniques that we are leveraging, but there was a need to do a lot of modifications and add-ons that we have developed ourselves in order to create for the concept of the product to work. So we had invested a lot in extending the development to be able to leverage what already exists, but also make it robust and very capable of handling masses of metadata and analyze them in a very, very thorough manner.
And once the data has been ingested into your system, is there a way for customers to then be able to export that for their own analysis within their own platforms, or if they need to migrate to an in-house metadata platform after they have maybe built some additional in-house capabilities?
Absolutely. One of the things that we are being used is like the central repository of the BI metadata. So whereas we collect metadata and we analyze it and we visualize this analysis in the form of discovery, compare, ETLs and reports, and also the data lineage, we are also capable of sharing that metadata outside the product, I would say, for other use that, for example, used for analysts or data scientists, or even to inject that as one of the examples for data governance. There are some data governance tools that are relying on Octopai's automation to analyze metadata from a variety of business intelligence systems, not only so fast, but also so accurate in a way that they can receive that metadata that had been analyzed by Octopai and use that for their own other uses.
And as you mentioned earlier on, in the broad sense, metadata management systems are difficult to build and scale and maintain. So I'm wondering if you can speak to some of the difficulties that are inherent and unique to metadata platforms as opposed to your more general data storage systems.
Yes, I think that when I need to go back about 3 years ago, when we were asking ourselves what is missing in the market that we can help with, because we ourselves were using different tools to manage the metadata, and we were using different vendors' tools because we had ETL systems, we had database systems, and we had reporting systems. So what is missing? And one of the things that we've seen is that most vendors help manage the metadata, but only for their tools. There's no view that is a cross-platform. And when I mean cross-platform, I don't mean just the ability to see how the data moves from an ETL to database to analysis and to reporting, but also if within each and every one of these pillars there might be different vendors participating in that data journey. So we were challenged by one of our customers to reverse engineer how the data landed on a specific report, and that specific report was in SSRS and the BO, consuming data from Oracle database and Informatica and Data Stage. We're running ETLs to upload data to those database tables that then generate reports in different vendors' tools. So how do you unify and how do you flatten the view of the data journey, even though there are different systems from different vendors responsible for the different steps of the data movement process? And this is really, really difficult. So this is why we've established the company. Fortunately for us, we see that the demand to understand cross-platform data movement or data journey is something that is really, really important. The second thing that we saw is how fast can you get this up and running? As we've experienced with other tools, and this is being verified every day that we talk to a new prospect, that some of them are actually using different tools in the market, but they require a lot of customization, a lot of preparation. And in a dynamic, changing environment where any company change their data all the time, they create new processes, they change processes, they modify processes, they delete tables, they add fields, they generate reports, they obsolete reports. Things are being changed all the time. Therefore, they need to continue invest in understanding what already exists in their infrastructure and what will be changed tomorrow. And with Octopai, one of the things that we've challenged ourselves, how fast can you get our product up and running? And what would it require from the customer to enjoy the latest refreshed metadata within the organization? And the third thing that we wanted to put in as a challenge was this tool needs to be intuitive, and this tool needs to be as cool as possible for everybody to use it. I remember myself using tools that were designed 20 years ago. There's nothing wrong with that, but if you want to modernize yourself and you want to be able to refresh the metadata and upload this with very minimum work on your side, and you would like it to be covering the entire infrastructure, these three values, cross-platform, easy to get up and running, and very, very simple to use, either each and every one of them or even the combination of all three of them, we haven't seen in any one of the products from the different vendors that we've used to work with. So one of our customers even shared that Octopi is a great example where the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. And we are very, very proud of it.
And when somebody is getting started with onboarding onto your platform, what is involved in actually deploying and configuring the collection agents that you use for being able to load the metadata into your platform?
Right. So a typical customer would go probably through the following process. So we will create an account for the prospect on our cloud. They will get a dedicated server and a link. They will click on the link and they would choose which systems they would want to extract metadata and upload to Octopi. Then they will download these extractors, very thin client, that what it does, it extracts the metadata. And then they need to run those extractors. And that's the only thing they need to do. That extractor runs anything from half an hour to an hour, extracts the metadata, and create an XML file, which is readable. So you can see that the extractions is only about metadata, not data. Then you just need to point this file to a link, and that link leads to a vault where the metadata is being encrypted, and from that point on, it's being uploaded to your account on Octopi. That's the only thing you need to do. The next thing you know is you get a link 24 hours later saying all the metadata that you've uploaded had been analyzed and ready for you to be used. And the good stuff about it is that once you run the extractor, you can even schedule how often would you like that extractor to continue and extract the most and the latest metadata that you have in your organization. So companies use Octopi to refresh metadata sometimes every day, every week, every 2 weeks, every month. That's the only thing that the customer needs to do.
And for people who are using ETL tools that are more freeform, such as the Airflow project from Apache or Luigi or some of the Hadoop style or some of the projects from the Hadoop ecosystem, are there considerations that they should keep in mind as they're building out these workflows for being able to generate useful metadata?
That's a great question. I think that this is a great tip or a suggestion for everyone, because one of the things that had been neglected in the past years is that people were very, very busy in generating business processes, not really paying a lot of attention to the metadata. Now it's becoming a challenge. And I will actually follow your recommendation, where as you build your next ETL or your next business process, pay attention to how metadata is being related there, how it's being descriptive, how it's being manipulated, how it's being transformed, so then you can easily understand its meaning. One of the things that we see is that metadata keep or tend to be changed as it being modified between different systems. And you can find in the ETL a field called customer product, and then on the semantic layer of the reporting, you can see name of product or product name. So now the question starts, do they carry the same meaning even though they are being called the same, differently? So one of the things that Octopi paid attention to is, first of all, to solve what you call the legacy systems that exist today. If this has to do with more traditional systems being used for many, many years, if this is data staging, Informatica, and SSIS, and then also take care of the less structured or, I would say, freehand capabilities of writing ETLs.
And one of the reasons that I wanted to talk to you in particular is some of the interesting use cases that you have documented for people who are leveraging your platform. So I don't know if you can speak to some of the types of workflows and information analysis that are enabled by using Octopi and having a robust metadata management platform in place for your business information.
Right. I think that what we see very interestingly is the combination of the capabilities that we have been able to generate available for the business intelligence once the metadata has been analyzed and what they're using it for. So I would say that from capability point of view, we are able to, after the analysis of the metadata, we generate the data lineage, and we generate the discovery and the mapping of the data. We understand, for example, the ability to compare between reports and between ETLs. And now the question is, what are you using these type of capabilities for? And interestingly enough, we see that the BI is dealing with a lot of different, I would say, use cases. One of the most popular ones is, as I started this call, business user X complains about a report called Y, and I need to reverse engineer how the data landed in that report. Unfortunately, this event, this use case happens a lot of time to any organization every week. When we look at our customers in the past 18 months, there's not a single customer that needed to draw a data lineage from a report backwards all the way to the ETL to the source system tens of times on a weekly basis. These incidents of can I trust the data that I see happens a lot. The second use case of which discovery and data lineage is important is when you want to design a change in an ETL. Typically what had happened, you would go to your data architect and say, well, we need to modify some of our ETL processes because we want to add more data consumed from the source systems through those ETL processes. So now a change may be very, very difficult, because one of the things you need to pay attention to is when you want to do a change, you need to anticipate ahead of time before going to production what could be the impact of that change on anything that depends on what we're going to do to that ETL process. And unfortunately, since you don't know which are the exact reports that are going to be defected because of a change that you do downstream the ETL, you just go live. And then you're faced with use case number one, that business users complain now about data mismatch or data integrity issues that have been caused by a modification that was done 3-4 weeks earlier. The third thing that we've seen customers looking for metadata management and leverage our automation to do that is when you run on cross-organizational changes. And that happened a lot in the past year and probably will continue to be as you modify yourself to, for example, meet the GDPR. Two use cases that happened to us is this insurance company that needed to change how they calculate the number of employees in their organization. And to do that, they needed to find a field that is being calculated based on 3 different formulas. Those formulas run on different ETL processes, storing data in different database tables, and show that in hundreds of reports. The challenge was, where is this formula? How do we find it in all of the thousands of ETL processes, and each ETL process has different layers of maps and jobs that run that formula? Another interesting use case was a telecom company that for some reason, the GK, or the GK is the field that generates those subscribers, had gone bananas, and they started to generate fake numbers that caused the financial to be completely inaccurate. So they needed to find almost 5,400 areas of which this GK field exists, and it took them about 4 months to do that. So finding a data element within the entire landscape is very, very difficult. Another use case was that a big telecom company bought an internet company, and that big telecom company had an ETL system, and the internet company had a different vendor's ETL system, and they wanted to join them together. So one of the questions was, are there any ETL processes that we can eliminate from the internet company instead of restructuring it in the existing ETL? So the question they were using Octopai for, are there any ETLs that are not being consumed by any reports? Because if there are no reports showing data from these ETL processes, actually we don't need them, we can delete them. This way we save them 60% of the modifications that are needed to do. So anything that has to do with root cause analysis or reverse engineering of about data integrity in a report. Use case number 1. Use case number 2, understand impact of changes. If you want to change anything in a table or an ETL process or recreate a new one. Use case number 3, if you want to find a specific field, formula, map, calculation in order to modify this and understand in 5 seconds where that mapping leads you to find that specific data element. So these four top, I would say, use cases happen a lot every week, every month, across the year, which takes huge amount of time to try to do this manually. And this is where automation comes in place to expedite and to enhance the capability to track, to analyze, and understand metadata across the BI landscape instead of manual way rather than with automation.
And when you're collecting the metadata from your customer systems, are there any particular types of information that you need to be careful of collecting in terms of sensitivity that might be exposed if it's not managed properly? Or are there ways that customers can exclude certain attributes of their metadata from being collected to meet certain compliance requirements?
The answer is yes. First of all, let's remember that we are analyzing only metadata. So from data point of view, we don't show this, we don't extract it, we don't manage it. Nevertheless, there are some cases in some of our companies that they wanted to choose what type and which metadata is going to be uploaded to Octopai. And they have the freedom to decide which metadata will be analyzed by Octopai. And even within the application, they are capable of hiding some of the metadata if they needed to decide which metadata is going to be seen by different people within the BI team. So they have full control of visibility of the metadata that is being extracted, analyzed, and then shown to users within Octopai.
And what are or have been some of the most challenging aspects of building and growing Octopai, both from the technical and business perspectives?
So I think that the first challenge was to make the dream a reality. The ability to take these three values that we put on ourselves 3.5 years ago and say, can we have a cross-platform product that can be up and running within a day and can be used by everyone? I think that taking those values and understand what does it mean from the product perspective was very, very challenging. Actually, we were talking to large companies, trying to ask them, why don't you do that? And they said, well, it requires very deep technology understanding to make that happen. It's not just more of the same. This should take a very disruptive approach. And I'm very, very happy that we were able to look at the different technologies and make that happen. So first of all, our challenge was to make this dream a reality, which means if you have a product that actually does what we want that product to do. The second thing is, I think that from the business point of view, we are a small company that introduced a very disruptive technology. And in the enterprise, very much of the business decisions to choose one product over the other has to do with the trust. So one of the things that we are introducing to the market is saying, hey, stop doing anything you're doing in a manual way, stream that metadata to Octopai, which from their point of view is a black box, and the output is going to be showing you the metadata in a most accurate manner. And that leap of faith needs to be happening. And fortunately for us, one of the things that we were able to do is to find those customers that are using the product in the past 18 months because they are innovators, they are industry leaders, and they were in a situation where they really were curious how that product can actually help them. How can it be that there is a product that combines all these three values? And by that, one of the things that we are doing is create a very good reputation in the market that can be trusted by additional customers that have seen that other customers are using it. So one of our next challenges is to grow our business, because we know that we have a very good product, we know that it works, and we know that it is solving a problem that is on the agenda to be solved within thousands of customers. And we want to be able to reach that point where they're taking a look at our product as a valid option to solve their problem.
And are there any particular plans that you have for Octopai going forward in terms of new features for the platform or improvements in your internal processes or anything customer-facing that people should be keeping an eye out for?
So absolutely. First of all, one of the things that we're doing in the product side is to extend its reach. And when I say that is, We want to grow widely with adding more and more systems that can be analyzed by Octopai. And not only on the BI space, but also that can serve the business, the BI technical team, but also on the business application side. And the other axis is what we call the deep. The deep has to do with additional functionality that we can help our customers to benefit as a result of the metadata being centralized and analyzed. So have the product not only become a viewer, but turn it to be more proactive. I'll give you an example. If a customer refreshes the metadata constantly with Octopai, which means they've uploaded now April metadata, and we already have March metadata, Octopai's product can be proactive in a way that we can alert the customer of any discrepancies that have been done before going to production. Not only showing what exists, but also help them to understand which reports have been deleted or modified, which data elements have been deleted, modified, or changed or added. And that turns the product to be more proactive to the customer rather than the customer to use Octopai to find out things. And the third thing that we are very focused is to build our market reach by partnering with very strong system integrators and also expand our marketing activities to create more awareness and knowledge about who we are, what we can do, how we have been trusted in the past 18 months by a lot of customers, and why should you too consider looking at Octopai and actually start using it.
So for anybody who is interested in getting in touch with you and keeping track of the work that you're doing, I'll have you add your preferred contact information to the show notes. And as a final question, as somebody who is working very closely with a lot of the tooling that's being used for building and managing data systems, is there anything that you view as being the biggest gap in the tooling or technology that's available for data management today?
Yes, I think that I see a lot of tools that are still looking at the cloud as a difficulty. They're still kind of on-prem, very heavy-duty professional services customization. I think that more and more customers feel more and more comfortable with going to the cloud, where our product is. And one of the challenges that we had to face with when talking about our solution was, oh, you're on the cloud. I don't think any financial institution or banking or insurance company or retail or healthcare would agree to use your product on the cloud. And guess what? They do. Because they do understand that metadata and data management tools are more robust, more easy, and less costly when they are being managed on the cloud, either on our cloud or their cloud. This is something that needs to be discussed with each and every customer. But cloud is something that is taking place over a traditional type of installation. So I think that's one of the things that we see a lot. The second thing is the automation, leveraging technologies like machine learning to ease the work that the end customer needs to put in place. So you can build a product that can show you data lineage, but if this involves customer to do documentation and manual mapping and everything that then will be created just to connect the dot in the modeling, and that takes about 3-4 weeks, if not months, well, that's half good. We want the customer to focus on what they do best, get results from their data, and help them not to deal with the cumbersome, tiring, sometimes frustrating infrastructural work. And for that, we want to provide them automation. And we didn't see enough tools that are leveraging automation rather than continue the practice that we've seen in the past 3 years or 5 years of let's have a lot of people mapping, documenting your existing processes and just invest huge amount of time and labor. So these are the two areas, the automation and the cloud.
All right. Well, thank you for taking the time out of your day to join me and discuss the work that you're doing with Octopai. It's definitely a very interesting platform and one that obviously solves a very real need for a lot of businesses. So thank you again for that, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.